Hi, I'm Dewi, and this is Dewi's Life Coaching Channel. I'm getting ready to go to a wedding today, so I'm kind of all dressed up, ready to go. But I still wanted to get my review in from the Hallmark movie last night, Christmas by Design. So first I'll give a short summary, then I'll talk about some life coaching dilemmas and issues in the movie, and then I'll give my final review. So let's get started. This takes place first in Manhattan with our main character, Charlotte, who is a fashion designer and owns her own company called Alistair. There is a big mishap in her store. A big pipe bursts at the roof and it, ruins all the merchandise, and she has a one-of-a-kind luxury line. So she hasn't been home in 4 years for Christmas, which is Brooksdale, Connecticut, I believe. And she decides to go back since she can't work for the weekend. It has to be repaired. She doesn't like going home. She's not a very Christmas spirit type, so she kind of does it begrudgingly. Then we have Spencer, the main character, to Charlotte, which they also call short Charlie. I want to mention that too. And he moved into her hometown because he wanted that small town experience, and he loves it, and she can't figure out why he would actually choose to move there, because she loves the big city and the hustle bustle and living out her big dream. So they end up actually not really being too interested in each other in the beginning, and it's a really slow build, and I really like that. They have no breakups or boyfriends or girlfriends coming into this. So I think that's kind of nice. They kind of have a clean slate relationship-wise, and they just end up running into each other in town. And then part of what Charlie's dilemma with the shop is, her assistant, or her seamstress, I believe, enters her into a contest for Warwick's department store. And if she designs something they like in the contest, they'll give her a contract, and they have the ability to distribute all of her clothes, but the only catch is it has to be for their home and family line. And she's a luxury boutique, and so she kind of feels it's not a good fit and is like struggling to try and figure it out. And since Spencer likes to do a lot of the community events and be involved, he knows a lot of the people. One of the people he's close with is Dee Dee, which also happens to be Charlie's aunt, as she owns the diner. And so she also hits up a lot of events around town. And so they end up, of course, bumping into each other a lot at the activities, and Charlie's little nephew ropes her into doing things when she's like, no, I gotta work, and so she gets convinced to go, and she does. Then he says, maybe you can help me out if you just stand with me at some of these events. The single ladies won't think I'm so available, because he kind of didn't like that vibe with the other single ladies in town. He just kind of wanted to go about his business and wasn't interested in a relationship. And Charlie said, sure, I can do that if you help me out and be my male model. I have to make an outfit for this contest, a female and a male outfit. And so he's like, sure. So they spend some time together that way, and he learns more about her and finds out that her dad also drove a pickup truck like him, or his business was a car towing business. And so he loved that. He feels kind of connected to Charlie's dad and had heard a lot about him, living there. And now he met his daughter. And so he was, very curious about learning about him and all those things. And he also, I think I forgot to mention, he's also a mechanic. So there's that connection there that they start having about her roots growing up in the town, and now he just loves everything. So they make that arrangement. And then as they spend more time together, you see slowly they start to build a connection. And that connection is, I loved it. I thought it was very realistic. They did it slowly. It wasn't just first look and, oh, we're going to be in love. It wasn't like that. So the tone of this movie was very serious. I liked that. It wasn't like super funny, comical, and quirky. It was nice and serious, nice, even tone. But the characters had big stakes here. The stakes were high for them. So before I get into the dilemmas, I just want to say, we know they end up together. We know it works out. It is a Hallmark movie. And so the things that happen that I also want to mention quickly, the Christmas things. They have a pajama jamboree, or they call it a PJ jamboree. I keep forgetting how they say it because they made up a lot of words in this movie. Then there's something like an elf celebration, not an elf celebration, but they again call it an elf jamboree, something like that. The names are you can tell they're starting to make up things in some of the movies to be different. And I kind of didn't understand how some of the celebrations were. It was a little not clear, but it's okay, we get it. It's a Christmas event, everyone's coming together to be connected and share the Christmas spirit and joy, and they have a Christmas market and all these things, which are wonderful. So getting into the dilemmas for these characters, the obvious one is that her shop gets flooded, but the real main issue that Charlie has to overcome is that part of the reason she didn't go back home is because she missed her dad. And she really misses her dad. And her mom remarried, and she does not treat him, her stepdad, very nicely. And something you can see throughout the movie, which I think is very realistic, and I think a lot of people do this, and being a life coach, I'm aware of this as well. When we're in a bad mood, when we don't feel right, and then we have to go speak to someone or do something, we do it in that mindset, and so it comes out that way. So you see, when Charlie is upset or not in a good mood, she immediately treats Rick poorly. When she comes back from an awesome time with Spencer and they were out doing Christmas stuff, and then she comes home, she treats Rick very nicely. And that's a very typical thing that people do tend to do, and she's not very mindful of it. And her family very much feels that all she does is care about work, what she's doing with work. They even mention how she's probably lost some of the joy in her work, that she's not doing it for that love of creating and creating designs anymore. And she didn't even realize that in herself. It took some time for her to come around with that. And I think that was really spot on. I love how her character really showed that. And work and her dad were kind of tied together a little bit, but the bigger issue was her dad. Now, as a life coach, I would say she needs therapy for, dealing with the grief with her dad. I think there were a lot of leftovers that she had not dealt with that she needed to do, and I don't think they would resolve so quickly as they did in the movie. So if it was real life, I would say she needs to get some grief therapy to help her with that. Another thing is that her family kind of give her some truth bombs, I like to call them, when she does have a bad experience coming home and not in a good mood. She's like, why is Rick sitting in my dad's chair, and why? And they're like, why are you saying this? And they're like, don't talk to him that way. They're like, you feel guilty for not being here when dad died. And she gets so upset, but that was kind of like her wake-up call. to say, wow, like, yeah, I've been treating people badly, and that's why I didn't want to come home. And so she realized how it sort of rippled and affected other things as well, which is great. I loved seeing that in her, and that awareness that builds in her from some of those truths. And she realizes that, okay, I'm not going to just leave now. I'm going to find a way to work this out. She had to go back to that contest in New York, Christmas Eve, and then was going to come right back, because apparently it's a 4-hour drive to her hometown. So she was going to do that, but then when she got there, they kept pushing the time back. So she's like, I'm not going to make it in time, and it's Christmas Eve. I need to be with my family, and she left. And so she made the choice to pick family, and I thought that was really great. Of course, that's typical in Hallmark movies, but it's always great to see. It still always touches me when the characters do that. I love that. So that's sort of, the things Charlie works through and what she overcomes, and I love that about her. Spencer, it's been 3 years since his wife has passed away, and she passed away from lymphoma. And so he did not feel ready to date. He did not feel ready to go out with someone else, which is why he asked Charlie to sort of be like a decoy person for him as a buffer. He called it buffer in the movie, to be a buffer with all the other single ladies. At least if they were together, they couldn't approach him, and then he wouldn't feel so awkward. I think it's really great how they get into his issues as well with this, and you see how he's struggling, how much he's liking Charlie and wants to take it slow, but then wants to take a step back and and I love that about him. I think that's very real. He's kind of scared, and I think that's normal. And, he turns to Dee Dee, the diner owner, and he asks her for advice, and she ends up being sort of that wise older person that gives him the advice that he's looking for, to give him that final, nudge to go for it with Charlie. And so that's what he has to overcome, the fear of forgetting his wife and their time together. And so Dee Dee says, you're never going to forget her. And you also have to live the life you have now, which I thought was great advice. That was awesome. Again, it seemed there might be some leftovers with him and sort of grieving, and I would probably say he would need some therapy as well to get over his grief and loss with his wife. Overall, I would say this movie, I give it a 5 out of 5. I really enjoyed watching it. I liked it. I liked the tone, the pace. It was a nice, even pace. It was all the Christmas things, are just sort of scattered in there really nicely and evenly. I liked how the characters were written and how they were portrayed. There's a lot to like in here. And Charlie's character, you see her struggling. You see her trying to figure things out. And it's wonderful because you're rooting for her, right? As I said in my last review, that's what I felt like I was missing in the previous movie. And here I feel like I'm rooting for her. I really want her to do well and succeed in her business, and then also confront the issues that she has with her dad. And she does that. And she figures out a way to work it out with Spencer, and ends up, even though she left the contest, the person who worked at Warwick's gave her a call and said, I still like your designs, and I want your designs anyway. And she ended up designing pajamas, and he said to her, the reason he wants her is because she stood up for everything that clothing line is about, which is home and family, and she stood up for family, and he liked that. And so this is where I feel like, yay, I wish real life was like this. I don't think in real life it'd be this way, but this is where I want to say, yay, yes, This is where I wish real life was like this, but it is in the movie, and I love seeing it there too. So that would be my final review. I give it a 5 out of 5. I loved it. I loved the characters. I'm going to do more reviews, so if you like, please subscribe, and see you next time. Bye.